Oregon is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
This is Duck Insider.
We need to get community. We need this thing to be bigger than just our little circle of players and coaches.
Are you kidding me? Touchdown, Oregon!
With 2 seconds on the clock.
He hits it!
That's the bigger picture in this thing, allowing the community to celebrate the hard work, blue-collar mentality this group brings to the table.
And the Ducks have won it! The Ducks have won!
We get to struggle together, and we get to have joy together.
The Ducks are Pac-12 champions!
I am so proud right now to be the head coach at Oregon.
Catch made! Touchdown, Oregon!
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
Let's do that. We've got a lot to cover today. The voice of the Huskies, Tony Castricone, is going to join us. A lot to cover with our counterpart who will be on the call on the Washington side of things. And then also a number of Oregon football student-athlete interviews that we've yet to get to today. Throughout the course of the week, we talked to, about 10 student-athletes, I think, this week, including last night, Terrence Ferguson on the Oregon Football Coaches Show. If you missed it, T-Ferg was great. Awesome catching up with the junior tight end. Encourage you to check it out if you missed it. Streaming on the Oregon Football social media channels. Maybe you were tuning in on the GoDucks YouTube where you're watching Duck Insider. Also subscribe to the Oregon Sports Network podcast if you ever need to listen on demand. It was a great conversation, truly, with Terrence Ferguson and Dan Lanning last night. Jaleel Florence, Evan Williams, Troy Franklin, Bryce Betcher, Jackson Powers Johnson also featured. And today is the grand opening of the Jake down at Emerald Valley Golf Club. Oregon men's and women's golf have got their home. Check out social media today, tomorrow for some interviews, some photos, a tour going on actually today. So it's going to be fun. 12:30 kickoff on ABC, a 10:30 pregame show for us across the Oregon Sports Network. Spoiler alert, kickoff's actually like 12:45. If you're running a little late after the lunch or beverage pickup, you're okay. 12:45 is the official scheduled kickoff time. Okay, we had some fun with Tony Castricone, and we got one thing out of the way right off the bat. He was allowed two. Don't worry, I returned the favor. You'll see what I mean. Catching up with the voice of the Huskies, Tony Castricone, previewing the rivalry matchup on Saturday. Ducks and dogs are always fun. We're just going to start this in the cordial way. He's Tony Castricone, voice of the Huskies. Tony and I started calling basketball the same year in the Pac-12. Now it's going to be in the Big Ten. We know that we're still going to get a chance to talk to each other, so I don't have to do the Tony, I hope this isn't the last time that we talk conversation that I've done with a few other colleagues of ours throughout the conference, because we know that there's going to be a Big Ten matchup at least for the next 5 years, probably for the next eternity between the Ducks and the Dogs. He's Tony Castricone. How the heck are you, sir?
Until the Big Ten expands again and we have to blow up the schedule again.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, multiple things to cover. First of all, we're just going to get this out of the way right now. You get 2 mentions of this because you're on Duck Insider. I just say go Ducks. You say
go Dogs.
Okay, good enough. We'll end the interview with that as well. Season so far, Tony, it's been a good one, hasn't it, up in Seattle?
Yeah, no question. I think exceeding expectations based on just how dominant they've been in most games so far. And I know Oregon could say the same thing. I mean, the hopes were high coming into this year. And yet I think the thing that's really impressed me the most about Washington so far is the defense is definitely better. I think there have been moments where, you get a little bit disappointed in the third and the fourth quarter with the second and third teams maybe letting the guard down a little bit and just not always playing up to the standard. But I think the one thing I was prepared for was for this offense to maybe, with the new clock rules and the way the teams might change the way they cover Michael Penix and the receivers, I was kind of prepared for a statistical regression, to be honest with you. And it's only gotten better, which is really saying something when you've put the offense on tape for 13 games last year. And now you continue to play at this high of a level. And I think, just for context, everybody has been rightfully so commending Jed Fish for the job he did game planning with Arizona at home against Washington a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, yeah, Washington still went 30 of 40 for 363 yards passing. These are still numbers that we would normally be like, what a phenomenal performance. But they did take away the deep ball. They did do a good job of forcing Michael Penix to maybe, they shortened the game, fewer possessions, and they forced one turnover down in the red zone. And that was enough to keep them within arm's shot. I mean, it was a 7-point game. It felt like a 21-point game for most of it. But I think they may have been able to put a little bit of a blueprint together for a way to kind of stop a high-powered Washington offense. So, and the same thing could probably be said for Texas Tech, the way they played against Oregon, right? I mean, I think both teams have been dominant in 4 games, had one road contest that was a little tougher than expected. All things considered, look at the combined records of the 2 teams so far. I think if you take FCS wins out of the combined opponent records, Washington's is like 9-15. Oregon's is 8-16. We haven't. I mean, this is the first real big boy test for both of us. Should be fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the metrics that I've looked at, you and I are similar. Like, we like to look at the stats, try to make sense of them, and then sometimes we sound smart. Sometimes the game goes completely the opposite direction.
That's right.
It's football. But quick starts for both teams. I feel like both offenses have been so good, particularly early, that apart from maybe those couple games we alluded to there, like, you're making the opponent chase points. Both teams have been pretty darn good at that. I think that might be something to watch. Who does start first, and is it a trade possessions game? Does somebody get a 14-point advantage? I don't know. I think that could be interesting in this game.
There's so many things to consider. Truthfully, if you want to look at games that might have been most impressive for both teams, it's probably the one game for both teams where they didn't start fast, right? You go down to Stanford, have a dud of a first quarter, and yet you come away with a 36-point win on the farm. How often does that happen?
Right.
Same thing could be said for Washington at home against Boise State. One of the better pass defenses in America, one of the better defenses in America, a giant killer of a team. Huskies score 0 in the first quarter and end up winning 56-19. I mean, right. So I'm with you. Look, everybody, if given the choice, start fast, start slow, you're always going to start fast, right? And yet, does that end up being the determining factor? Not always. Yeah. So both these teams have so many statistical outliers, so many superlatives, so many different areas of strength that really it's just going to be who can battle, who can weather adversity, who can put the mistakes behind them, who can make the fewest mistakes, and the game's going to change. It's going to hinge and depend on 4 or 5 key plays, right, like most big titans of football games do. But I don't think last year either of us saw this game being a low-scoring first half. It was 13-10 at halftime, right? Mm-hmm. If you would have told me Washington gives up 595 yards in Eugene, I'm thinking that's a loss. It turned out it was a win. The most yards ever allowed in a win, right, ever at Washington. So we could go on, but I'm with you. I love to try to piece context clues and narratives together, and yet there are so many of them that it's a great mystery who's going to come out on top on Saturday.
So then we just get to throw it out at 12:30. This is what the week lead up is for. In this case, 2 weeks lead up is for with a couple bye weeks. He's Tony Castricone, voice of the Huskies. He'll have the call on the Washington side of things coming up. I wanted to ask kind of generally, like, I've been really impressed with what Kalen DeBoer has done, Tony. Like, now that you've gotten a chance to work with them and we see the numbers, we see the success, like, how much has the Washington fan base just embraced this guy at this point? I mean, he's done a heck of a job, I feel like.
Yeah, he has done an amazing job, and it's just the quality of the person he is, in my opinion. I mean, I think he's just kind of comfortable with who he is and what he's about and the work that he's put in, to the point where there is this kind of quiet confidence that we're going to be okay. We're going to face adversity, but we've done our work. We've done everything we can to prepare, and we're going to be okay. And And that kind of confidence has like really rubbed off, I think, on the entire team. And I think even some, coaches get beat up for the coach speak a lot, but right. I think he's found a way to articulate not just to his staff, to his players, but even to the entire fan base, why his coach speak is what it is, why he values the things that he says. And now, how often do you see entire fan bases rallying around coach speak? But Washington's is right now. Everybody's talking about 1-0 mindset and all this stuff, right? It's because there's been this big buy-in. And so I think it's been phenomenal just to watch how a guy can come in and galvanize an entire program, an entire fan base. And it's been a phenomenal start. But that being said, last year, that 11-2 season, the schedule was not nearly as tough as it is this year. We just got done kind of saying, the Huskies haven't really been that tested so far. It's still a way tougher schedule than it was through 5 games a year ago. And it's only going to get tougher. The Murderer's Row of November is looming. Obviously, the only thing anybody's thinking about right now is this Saturday. But, Joey, I got to say, watching SC, watching all these teams, with all due respect to the Beavs and the Trojans and the Cougs are off to a great start. I think the 2 best teams in the conference are going to be playing football in Seattle this Saturday.
Yep. And
those are your favorites to compete for a Pac-12 championship. Doesn't mean either of them will win it. But, I think they're the 2 best teams, and it's the biggest rivalry game in the fiercest rivalry that Washington has ever played. What more could fans be excited about?
I agree. What more could fans be excited about? That's Tony Castricone joining us, voice of the Huskies. We taped with him earlier. We've got part 2 coming up as we continue to talk Ducks and Dogs. Rivalry matchup, 12:30. I'm ready for Saturday now. Just did my last interview. Just talked with Coach Lachlan for the pregame show. We're ready now. The broadcast is ready. I'm ready. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have anything else really on my calendar the rest of today. So now I'm just ready for picks, ready to get on that plane. Yeah. Part 2 of our conversation with our counterpart from Washington, Tony Castricone. More Duck Insider after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear roads, trails, and rivers. Ready for some SUV action? Drive family adventures with the Highlander. Make a splash with the RAV4 or haul fun with a Sequoia. Check them at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear roads, trails, and rivers. Ready for some SUV action? Drive family adventures with the Highlander. Make a splash with the RAV4 or haul fun with a Sequoia. Check them at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
Into the building for the first time after the shooting. It was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
We're back on Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. I'm Joey Mack in the Country Financial Studio, continuing our conversation with our counterpart from the Great Purple North. And if you're watching the show, Tony Castricone embodies the Great Purple North, doesn't he? Part 2, previewing the rivalry matchup, our chat with Tony Castricone. There's a reason the game day is going to be there, right? There's a reason it's the 12:30 ABC game. And, you hit on something there that I think is just a fact. Like, again, people like us that look at stats, try to figure these things out, the metrics tell you that right now these are the two best teams. Who knows what's going to happen the rest of the way, but that's just true. No, I'm with you. So environment-wise, you talk about how it's a big rivalry game. First time in the history of the rivalry that it's a pair of teams that are both in the top 10, which says a lot about where these programs are right now. What's the environment going to be like? I mean, should I be wearing like a suit of armor up there? Like, what are we thinking, Tony?
Maybe earplugs. But, I think, I don't know. I mean, Joey, this will be my 5th Washington-Oregon game in football. And all 4 of them have been unbelievable environments. And now you just pump it on steroids with, the pre-gaming is going to begin at 5 a.m. with game day.
I know.
And there's this much to lose for both teams. And you had that great of a game. Was that not the best? Maybe not from your perspective. I don't know how much wins versus losses impacts for you, but that was one of the best college football games I've ever seen in my life last year.
No, I hear that.
Someone had to lose that game.
Yeah.
And I expect this week to be a shame that somebody has to lose this game. And if it can live up to that kind of competitiveness and that kind of fire and that kind of intensity for 3.5 hours, what do you think the environment's going to be like in that tin box on the lake with the cantilever roofs, the loudest place any measured college football stadium has ever been? And I know that out of the 70,000 seats, not everybody, it's a purple out, but not everybody's going to be wearing purple. You guys will bring your fans too. And it's going to be awesome. I've never experienced anything like this rivalry. And now when you put it on this level of intensity with this much to lose, it's archetypal, man. Yeah. It can't get any better than this.
I agree. No, this is where you get the two juggernauts that go head to head, and these are the games that we talk about. And I will say, this rivalry, it's talking about how these two teams, are both in the top 10. This rivalry has had its fair share, maybe more than most rivalries, of one-sidedness through eras, right? Yep. Washington's had that. Oregon's had that. Now that they're both where they are, I mean, this is what the rivalry is supposed to be. That's how I feel. Like, this is the romantic side of us having this conversation, but it's true, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think here's another thing too, like the kid in me that grew up loving baseball. The fact that the last 6 meetings between these teams, the series is tied at 3. This is game 7.
Right.
It feels like a game 7, right? Like when you have this much at stake. And granted, the two teams with the restructuring of the conference, it's possible they meet again in Las Vegas later this year. Mm-hmm. But this game right now, it feels like a game 7. And you just don't get that every year, even every decade. You don't always get to be a part of something like that. The only thing, Joey, as an outsider, as someone that grew up in the Midwest and coming in to now be a part of this rivalry, the only thing I've ever felt like it's lacking is that late season, end of the year, everything from the whole year is on the line. Mm-hmm. And we might get that starting next year.
Right.
So, what a special time to be a part of the football program at the University of Washington or the University of Oregon, that you get to be, you're lucky enough, you're blessed to be a part of something this special. This is special. It's the 20th ever top 10 game in the history of Husky football. It's the 12th ever in the regular season. It's the 5th ever at Husky Stadium, and it's the first ever against those Ducks. Man, what a game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Tony Castricone, voice of the Huskies, joining us. And, talking about how this could mean a heck of a lot. It's kind of a prove-it game for so many reasons, all the metrics you mentioned. And it's also maybe the best example of what this conference as a whole has at the quarterback position. You get Bo Nix, you get Michael Penix. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if the winning quarterback of this game is the one that ends up in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, right? Like, that's the gravity of something like this, and that's what it's all about. You and I are both smiling as I say that. Like, you love those great quarterback matchups that we're going to get like this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also smile because I do think it's far-fetched to have any hopes that there would be 3 Pac-12 quarterbacks in New York.
Wouldn't it be great,
So,
though?
It's like, okay, let's go ahead as the incumbent. Let's go ahead and say Caleb Williams is probably going to take one of those spots. And so, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, it'll be a duel. Obviously, it's a team sport, and obviously it's a 3-faceted sport with offense, defense, and special teams. And I'm sure that it's similar with Oregon's love for Bo Nix, but I'll tell you, Michael Penix is loved by his teammates. And Rome Odunze, who I think is a special young man, not just as a football player, but as a person. He's such a cool kid, getting to know him and talk to him. He is a visualization guy, and he writes down his goals and has them posted up, and looks at them first thing in the morning and looks at them last thing before he goes to bed, like straight out of, the old textbooks as to how to have success in life, right? And on his goals, his goals say he wants 80 receptions, he wants 1,300 yards, he wants to win the Biletnikoff, and he wants to win Michael Penix the Heisman Trophy.
That's cool.
Like, I think that's pretty cool. And there are team goals as well. But I think it's cool that, like, some of the studs on this Husky team, they love Mike so much that they want to play well so that he can get that recognition at the end of the year. It's a really cool story. And, we'll see. I mean, he's clearly good enough to be in that conversation. It's going to come down to how this team and how he performs the rest of the season.
Tony Castricone, voice of the Huskies, joining us. Joey Mack here with you on Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Quick timeout in the Country Financial Studio. When we come back, more talking Ducks, Dogs, rivalry. Back after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
Duck Insider continues after this timeout on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says,
avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
Oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, honey bear.
Because remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. I'm Joey Mack. Part 3 now of our chat. Tony and I talked awful long time, both on the air and off the air, about this matchup. It's going to be fun. 12:30 kickoff in Seattle, 10:30 pregame show. The view from the other side, or the north. I always call Seattle the Great Purple North. Whenever we're talking about Washington, it's the Great Purple North. Live from the Great Purple North. Yeah, I will probably say that at some point on Saturday. Anyway, part 3 of our chat with Tony Castricone, some of the keys to the game coming up. With us talking Ducks and Dogs. Overall, you mentioned like it's a team sport, right? The offense generates a lot of hype, rightfully so, because there's a lot of talent on the offense around Michael Penix. Catch us up. Like Duck fans I've watched, but you're with them every day. How good's the offense outside of Michael Penix?
The offense outside of Michael Penix is it's really coming along. I mean, I think it's got the best trio of receivers in the country, 1, 2, and 11, Odunze, Polk, and McMillan. I think the worst case scenario in the passing game is you're checking down to a 6th-year tight end and Jack Westover or Devin Culp, and these guys have just made play after play so far this season. It's the running game that had to come along. Cam Davis lost. I mean, what a massive loss that ends up like, people kind of forget that this is a part of this team's story. Lost starting running back Cam Davis for the season in camp, and it has basically fallen on a transfer out of Mississippi State, Dylan Johnson, to be the go-to guy. And he was battling injuries in the offseason, had a slow start to the year, but week 3 burst onto the scene against Michigan State, has been really good since then, and developing depth with Nebraska transfer Will Nixon at running back. And then a true freshman, Tybo Rogers, has kind of worked his way into the number 3 role. He's pretty good, and I think they're high on his future. The offensive line lost 3 veterans from a year ago, guys that played a lot of football, and it was right in the middle of that line. They returned the 2 tackles who are both Sunday guys, but I think it's been – they've dealt with some injuries on the inside. They had a starting guard and a starting center who have both been out, and yet they've moved some pieces around, and they really haven't missed a beat. So they're very young on the inside of that line, and I know that Oregon's done a much better job getting after the quarterback this year. I think that's a big part of the storyline. Can the offensive line keep Penix upright and give him time to deliver? But, all things considered, I think this offense somehow is better than it was a year ago, which is really saying something.
I think similarly, I was going to ask you about the defense. I agree with you. Like Oregon's defense, I think, has taken a step up this year. Numbers back that up. Washington's defense, same thing. The defense better for the Huskies this season.
It needed to be. In order for this team to compete for championships, which is the ultimate goal, it needed to be better. And I think – looking at the edges, Braylon Trice and Zion Tupuola-Fatui, that's a heck of a combo at getting after the quarterback. I think they've done a great job of affecting the quarterback. They haven't always gotten home this year. I think that's something they really want to see a little bit more of, and it's tough to do against an Oregon team that doesn't allow sacks very often. They've really solidified the inside of the defense. That inside linebacker position has now 4 really good ones rotating. Edefwanya Lefosio is an All-American candidate and a 6th-year player. I think Alfonso Tuputala next to him is veteran and reliable. And then that second team rotating in, Carson Bruner and Raylan Goforth, the USC transfer, I think it's a much better linebacking core. And that front 6 is going to be called upon to stop an Oregon rushing attack that is scary. And I got to say, like last year, before the play where Bo Nix got banged up, I mean, it was a soul-crushing drive that Oregon was putting together, 90 yards down the field, just at will, 5 yards, 6 yards, eating the clock, 10 minutes up. And it just felt like Washington wasn't going to get that chance to get the football back and try to win the game. And so you know what Oregon wants to do. They've got the backs. They've got the offensive line. And they've got the ability. They got to keep you honest in the passing game, too. So I think it's going to really be hard for Washington's defense to be as consistent as they've been. It'll be their biggest test. But I think they can go one-on-one a little bit more off the corners than they did a year ago. Jabbar Muhammad coming in from Oklahoma State, all Big 12 cornerback who's done a great job so far this year. And then Elijah Jackson is kind of that next guy who's been waiting his turn. And I think he's played his best football the last 2 games in particular. So good cornerback play this year for the Huskies.
I want to ask you a little bit bigger picture as we continue with Tony Castricone. Pac-12, I have mixed emotions. I'm sure as you do as well. We know that Oregon, Washington continuing into the Big Ten. I don't know, Tony. I've asked everybody this question, just like open floor. How are you reacting to all this movement of the last, well, I guess it depends on how long you've been paying attention. I don't know. Take it from here, Tony.
Yeah, I think so. Great question. And you said, how am I reacting? I think the way I process this was that like any reaction is valid. Like it's
Agreed.
so crazy what has gone on here, that when the whole thing crumbled, it would be totally valid for people to just like mourn the fact that this great league is not going to be anymore. Almost it's a death, of 108 years of tradition. And yet I also think it's valid at that moment to have seen the unhealth and to even considered SC and UCLA moving on as a terminal diagnosis, to just maybe not be so shocked and just kind of see the finality of it as like, okay, well, we knew this was going to happen eventually, and let's move on, hopefully, to bigger and better. And I think from a Washington perspective, which is not going to be the perspective shared by all of the schools, I think to have the Big Ten as a landing spot and to preserve the rivalry with Oregon and to create new rivalries with some of the best brands in college sports, and to know that you're positioning yourself to be in it, to be in the big time conversation for the foreseeable future until more of these changes occur and more keeping up is going to need to happen. But it's really exciting. And again, I mentioned earlier that I grew up in the Midwest, but like, we're going to play at Penn State next year, man. What if that's a night game? What if it's a whiteout?
Right.
We're going to get Michigan in here next year. We're going to go to Iowa. It's just going to be really, really cool to experience some of this new stuff. I'm thrilled. I'm excited. And I think it's going to be hard to compete for a Big Ten championship. And I'm glad the playoffs expanding to 12, because I think it's valid to consider a conference that large and that deep that 3 or 4 teams from a league may be playoff worthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I am, as someone who grew up on the West Coast, disappointed about the demise of West Coast football and really college sports in general as it sits. You and I both, of course, traveling with basketball. I travel with baseball, others, and I think that's a thing, right? We know that, but I also agree that I'm excited to play some of these Big Ten matchups. It's going to be interesting because Ohio State's got a non-conference game against Oregon in 2032, Tony. So we'll see how that works out.
This is why we always laugh when they get announced, because, we'll see.
Right. Exactly. On that note, we'll see what happens Saturday at 12:30. He'll have the call on the Washington side. He's Tony Castricone. Tony, thanks for always taking the time to catch up. I'm glad that we'll be able to keep having these conversations. And go Ducks.
Go Dogs.
I told him he was allowed to. It's just the courteous thing to do. I did it on his end. It's part of the deal. Dave was asking about Tony's predecessor and Bob Rondo, what he's been up to. Last I knew, he was just enjoying retirement. I'll have to ask Tony next time I talk to him. Didn't get a chance to ask him. We recorded that interview, Dave, so I'll have to ask Tony when we're up there what Bob's been up to. But, yeah, it was always Jerry Allen, Bob Rondo, Ducks, Dogs. Yeah, that's Even the broadcasters feel the rivalry, okay? Like, when Tony and I see each other, we shake hands. We're friends, but I don't really have a whole lot to say other than that on Saturday. We'll see how it goes. When we come back, hearing from some Duck football student athletes, also the Slocum Center Minute. We've got that all for you coming up. Jaleel Forrence, Evan Williams zeroing in on the DBs that are going to try to slow down that high-powered passing attack from the Huskies. Slocum Center Minute, and back on Duck Insider after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Welcome to the Slocum Center Minute. Slocum Center orthopedic doctors are located here in Eugene and are the official orthopedic team physicians for your Oregon Ducks. With me, I have Dr. Mark Mildren, a hip and knee surgeon at Slocum Center for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, discussing Mako robotic arm-assisted technology for joint replacement. Dr. Mildren, tell us about Mako robotic arm-assisted technology for joint replacement.
So one of the latest iterations in technology in knee replacements is using robotics as well as navigation to place our components. Usually in knee replacement, we place the components first and then adjust soft tissue tension later so that the patient has a balanced knee. One of the benefits with the Mako robotic assisted knee is that we can actually make small tweaks to the component positioning to minimize trauma to the soft tissue and essentially balance the knee without making some of those releases. It enables a little bit less soft tissue damage as well as gets our components in a little bit more accurately.
Who's the ideal candidate for one of these types of replacements?
So really any patient that needs a knee replacement could potentially benefit from a Mako knee replacement.
Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Mildren.
Thank you.
That was the Slocum Center Minute, brought to you by Slocum Center for Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, the official orthopedic sports medicine team physicians for University of Oregon Athletics since 1967.
Dear roads, trails, and rivers. Ready for some SUV action? Drive family adventures with the Highlander. Make a splash with the RAV4. Or haul fun with a Sequoia. Check them at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear roads, trails, and rivers. Ready for some SUV action? Drive family adventures with the Highlander. Make a splash with the RAV4. Or haul fun with a Sequoia. Check them at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys! I love this song! I love these nachos. I love our kickball league! Ugh! I love this guy! What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Into the building for the first time after the shooting. It was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
We're back on Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Joey Mack in the Country Financial Studio. Dave said, why didn't you bring up the 10 years of Duck domination or the 0-12 season with Tyrone winning? Dave is ready for this rivalry matchup. Like, Dave, you're just haymakers. Look, truthfully, I did talk about with Tony during our conversation how this rivalry has had ebbs and flows. Because this is the first time that the two teams in over 100 meetings are playing each other when they're both ranked in the top 10. So maybe I didn't, throw the haymaker of 10 straight years, a nice decade of wins for the Ducks. But the truth is that Washington had success before that also. This has been a rivalry with up and downs, and I feel like as these two teams now have risen under the two second-year coaches, this could be a defining game in this rivalry. I guess we'll find out. Jaleel Florence, he's also going to be featured on our pregame show coming up at 10:30 across the Oregon Sports Network this Saturday. Jaleel Florence met with the media, one of the DBs for the Ducks that's played an awful lot and I think is going to be tested a few times this weekend. High-powered passing offense. Jaleel Florence talking with the media this week.
this passing attack and this receiving core?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
What stands out when you look at Washington's passing attack and receiving core?
Oh, they're super. They have super elite receivers that they like to attack vertical, and we know they like to throw the ball deep, and they like to get the ball to their receivers a lot.
Just going against that elite receiving core change how you prepare for this game, or is it just like any other week?
No, sir. I feel like we got one of the best receiving cores that I practice against every day. So I feel like it's just another opportunity for me to go out there and showcase what I do every day at practice.
What is it about Odunze and McMillan in particular on the outside that makes them so good?
Oh, they're super good at stretching the field. They're able to play at 1, 2, or 3 and use that ability to get matchups that they want on the field. So that makes them super good.
What's the excitement level for this defensive back room to go into a game as big of a challenge?
We're super excited. We're super excited for this. I feel like we let one slip away last year, and I missed that game. And I feel like this is my opportunity to come out and showcase what I can do. And I feel like our back end is just super excited to show the world what we can do and just keep holding ourselves to that standard that we've been holding ourselves to all year.
How much has the message been this week of focusing on the game and not the trash talk that will come probably between both these teams and the rivalry and the atmosphere?
Right, that's the message every week. Just focusing on us, focusing on Oregon. So we really don't like to listen to what they're saying on the other side or other opponents. We just focus on what we do because we're the ones playing at the end of the day. We're playing first ourselves every single day, and they're just like another opponent that's in front of us.
How much do you feel like week 2 at Texas Tech helped this team, the environment that was for this weekend?
It helped us a lot. We faced a lot of adversity that game. We had to fight back and come back and fight back to get the win, and I feel like that helped our toughness, our togetherness, our connection, and it really brought us together as a team to lean on each other and know that when we go down, we always got each other to pick each other back up.
What sort of challenges is it? Penix has been able to extend plays with his feet and still look downfield. You have to cover maybe for 5 or 6 seconds. What kind of challenge is that?
That's definitely a challenge, but we work drills like that, our practice every day, just working the plaster and stay on our man. So I feel like if we just stay on our guys and our D-line does what they need to do, it's going to be good, and we're not going to let him do what he needs to do that.
What makes him so effective on first and second down in particular? I think he's completing almost 80% of his passes on second down. He got a cannon. He got a good arm. He can throw the ball really well. Him and receivers, I feel like they got a good relationship to where he'll throw the ball before they even get out of their breaks, and he'll be right on time. So I feel like we got to be super tight in coverage every single snap. We just can't ease up on anything because he's a super good quarterback.
Super tight in coverage. Jewel Florence giving us one of the keys to the game there. You know, you've got talented wide receivers, but Oregon secondary has, I feel like, taken a huge step forward this year. You compare these two teams to last year. I keep coming back to this. Both the offenses were very elite last year. Both the offenses have been very elite and very efficient this year. But now the defenses have really risen, particularly Oregon's. DBs, though, are going to be tested. The level of competition keeps rising, as Coach Lanning's talked about once or twice so far this season. Another DB that's been a big-time addition to Oregon's secondary this year is Evan Williams. He met with the media this week talking about the matchup with the Dogs. Here's Evan Williams.
Any meaning to you in facing your former coaches?
Not really. I don't like to view it, too much as anything extra, anything out of the ordinary, But, I definitely do see it as a wonderful challenge for us, a wonderful opportunity just to go out and show who we say that we are and who we think that we are. So, yeah, definitely just excited for that challenge, not too focused on, it's hard to describe, kind of. It's not like any form of resentment or any form of, in that way at all, but it's just a reunion, and you want to prove, who you are and prove that you've leveled up since the last time they've seen you. So, yeah, definitely looking to, show a little bit extra, but also just happy for the challenge that we have.
I'm not sure what they're running now is similar to what you might have been facing when you were at Fresno State in terms of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really similar. When we had Jake back there, controlling that offense, it's kind of that typical air raid, spreading the ball around to playmakers and letting them create. We understand that they're going to, air the ball out, and that's the major part of what they do. So, I think we love that challenge as a back end, as a secondary, and just got to take that challenge, take that opportunity, and be disciplined this week and try to make plays.
Do you remember talking to your brother after the Washington game last year?
I think I had a game the same week. I was probably texting him a little bit. I don't know if I called him really, but it wasn't the greatest showing for him. He wasn't too happy after that. He thought he left a lot out on the table. So, yeah, I mean, definitely trying to have a better game, hopefully, you know. But, yeah, I honestly don't remember too much. But he's going to come to this game for us. So he'll be in the stands, and I know he'll be watching, and it's even a little more motivation to get after it.
Does that play? Obviously, it sticks with him, but he really didn't do very much wrong per se. But does that serve as something for you though? Because like he can't go back out there this weekend.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it gives me that opportunity to, you know, to make up for some of those. I'm not gonna say mistakes because he was just put in some tough positions. Positions where he you know, it would have been a ridiculous play if he made it, but it was just, you know, them beating the coverage. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely look back at some of those plays, try to correct some of those mistakes, and, you know, looking this time around to, you know, make some plays on some of those plays.
Have you gone to anyone this week, whether it's your brother or other players on the team, that have experienced this rivalry a little bit more to kind of learn a bit about the history of it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got a lot of guys on our roster that have, you know, played these guys multiple times. Definitely reached out to my brother. You know, he's completely understands just the significance of this rivalry. And, I mean, 2 undefeated teams, it's a clash, it's a matchup. And, you know, everybody's going to be there. The hype's going to be, you know, unreal. But, you know, something we've preached all week is just to, you know, be the eye of the storm, you know, the calm in the middle of all the chaos. And I think we're doing a good job of just trying to stay disciplined, correct our mistakes from, you know, previous years and not let the moment get too big.
I know you weren't a part of the defense last year, but do you just sense a little bit of redemption? Like this defense wants to prove that they are not the same defense they were last year, kind of when you guys go up there on Saturday?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not that we're not who we were last year, but that we're just completely different. You know, we have a completely different set of capabilities, and, you know, we're just looking to, you know, attack this opportunity, this challenge. We know they're going to challenge our secondary a lot, and just as a complete defense, being able to, you know, corral these playmakers that they got is going to be a huge challenge. And as I said before, we're trying to definitely prove who we say we are.
What does that mean to you as a player? Like, because you came here to win, to do these things, but to also prove it. It's like you guys have improved markedly on statistics, but you're both the biggest test you're going to face in this offense, in this receiving core, etc. What would backing that up with results mean?
I mean, it would mean, you know, all our hard work, all our effort put into, you know, just trying to be great and trying to improve from last year is, you know, definitely put into. I mean, it's come to fruition, you know. Oh my guys, geez. But yeah, I mean, it would mean, you know, everything for us to, you know, come show that we've not only improved, but, you know, we're just a completely different set of guys with a completely different mentality for sure.
How much value did having the extra week have going into this one, just with the intricacies Dan talked about, the pre-snap motion and all of that? How much of a benefit was that?
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, getting that extra week is a little head start, you know, just an extra week to see all of those plays over and over again, getting a little more repetition. So now that they come around this week, it seems almost like you can, you know, definitely point out certain tips or certain, you know, reminders that might help you pre-snap or, just little keys that can put you in a better position to make a play. So yeah, having that bye week is definitely, I think, pretty monumental heading into this week. And, you know, I think we did our best to completely use that to our advantage.
What makes Phoenix unique as a challenge as an opposing quarterback, and how much does it mess with the safety that he's left-handed?
Yeah, my brother talked to me about that. Kind of has just a little wonky release, you know, coming from the side with his left hand, and he said, you know, the ball tails to a different direction than what we normally see. So, it's definitely different. I'm just looking forward to, you know, kind of seeing it live, and, you know, obviously this year he's been slinging it and getting it to his playmakers and making the most of it. So, I mean, I'm going to repeat, you know, this is a challenge that we're definitely looking forward to. And just the opportunity that stands in front of us is one we're not going to back down from.
Great stuff from Evan Williams, leader in the Duck defensive backfield. And we know, look, the competition's rising. He was talking about, all this is true. Makes for a good rivalry matchup at 12:30 on Saturday. When we come back, Bryce Betcher, two-sport star, We're going to hear from him after this timeout. Back to the Country Financial Studio, Duck Insider presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union with Bryce Betcher next on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says.
Avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
Oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, Honey Bear.
Because remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Joey Mack here in the Country Financial Studio. 2 sports star Bryce Betcher. He's got a real nose for the ball, doesn't he? Been fun to watch his development along with this Oregon defense. And, hey, he's made some plays on special teams and on defense. Chatting with Bryce Betcher this week.
Well, as the resident Eugene guy, what does this one mean to you? What are the memories you have of it growing up?
Yeah, man, this is a big game. I would say it's personal, which it definitely is. Never grew up liking the Huskies all that much, but at the end of the day, it's Oregon versus Oregon. We got to control what we can control, and at the end of the day, if we do that, good things will happen.
Obviously, on paper, this is the biggest because of the rankings and those things. Again, as a guy who grew up with it, biggest since what? Like, what in your mind, when you think of this rivalry, what was the biggest game before the one you're about to play?
I want to say just the next game, but like historically, it's obviously just been Oregon State and the Huskies. There's not one that comes to mind because every year, no matter what we were ranked, what the magnitude of the game is, it's huge because it's bragging rights among family, among friends. I got a lot of family in the Northwest that live up there, and a lot of family that lives in Corvallis. So I take pride in this game a lot. Like I said, though, if it's Oregon versus Oregon, we control the controllables, good things will happen.
You guys have had a lot of time to kind of prepare for this one, and so have the Huskies with their bye week being last week as well. Just kind of what is the mood of the team? Are you guys excited? Are you focused? Is there a sense of urgency? How would you describe it?
Yeah, big sense of urgency. It's nothing just because it's a big game and whatnot. We don't change our game plan. We stick to our process, what we do every single week. The schedule's been the same. Last week we came off a good work week, and this week has been the same as every other week. Obviously, there's a little more juice and guys are bringing it at practice just because it's a big week, but when it comes to preparation, everything's the same.
Does this year's matchup just mean a little bit more to you now that you're supposed to have a larger role and not a linebacker rather than just special teams?
Yeah, obviously I have a bigger role on the team, so obviously I got to prepare more than I did last year, but that doesn't mean that in the past, I wasn't preparing and it didn't have as big as an impact on me personally. But yeah, I take every game as if it's the same and as if it's my Super Bowl, no matter if it's the Huskies or if it's Portland State. So, yeah.
There's been a big emphasis on kind of improving week to week. From the start of the season, What do you think the team has improved at the most heading into this week?
Improved at the most, honestly, our communication on defense. They do a lot of shifts and motions, and we got to be really good at communicating and slowing the game down on defense before the ball is snapped. So I'd say on that part, and also just tackling aggressiveness. We know they're a physical team, and we have to bring it when we want to tackle. So that's been a point of emphasis at practice this week.
Coach talked a little bit during the bye week about third down defense, some of the third and longer spots, trying to improve there in some of those situational splits. What are some of the things you're going to try to do to improve in some of those spots if they come up on Saturday?
Exactly. It's just communicating and watching film and recognizing the formations and what they come out in, and just recognizing it pre-snap and knowing what they're going to run before as they do or before they're going to do it. And ultimately, you got to get off the field on third down. That's how you win football games, and we haven't been the best at that in the past. And I think that the fact that coaches are making an emphasis on it and all the players realize that, it's huge for the team. So I think we got a really good game plan going into this week. Looking forward to it.
How do things change for you as a defensive player, especially a second-level guy, as left-handed quarterback, if at all, just because it is mildly unusual?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to watch out for boots and rollouts when he's rolling out to his left. Obviously, when it's a right-handed quarterback, it's a little bit different. But honestly, with him back there, my dad's left-handed. Reminds me of my dad back in the days rolling out and throwing me the ball. So if anything, I see the ball better out of his hand, which is nice.
It's like in general, I guess, facing an offense that it might throw the ball a ton. You're play linebacker. You're going to be out there in coverage probably more than maybe usual.
Mm-hmm.
What's that approach like for you?
It's just, honestly, it goes back to my safety days. It's a little bit different guarding someone from 5 yards away in the box. But once we get split out in coverage, I just got to remind myself of those days when I was working scooch technique and watching, catch and just getting a press. So I'm up for the challenge and I'm looking forward to it.
Washington throws the ball over 40 times a game, but they do a good job of not allowing pressures. What specifically does their offensive line do to keep Penix upright during a game?
Yeah, their offensive line is good. They just do good at picking up the pressures and recognizing them. They're smart. So at the end of the day, we just got to outsmart them and make it so we aren't recognizable on defense, and then just play hard. Honestly, we have all the scheme in the world, but what takes over the game is effort and playing hard. So if we keep doing that and mix those two things together, good things will happen.
Yeah, how about that answer? Like, you make it sound so easy, right? That it's just like, oh, good things will happen if you play with effort. But the truth is, like, that's the whole theme of Ducks versus them, Oregon versus Oregon. How many times have we all collectively heard that? Through the fall, through the beginning of the season. We've all heard it a lot. I think this is a game where that practice can really benefit you. You don't want penalties in a game like this. Coach Lanning said on the Coaches Show last night that at practice, the Ducks have even been pushing guys after plays just to see if they'll react. That's how you drill on penalties, for example. Tomorrow, early edition of the show, if you're live with us, 11:30 to 12:30. Jerry Allen will be with me. Ducks and Dogs coming up. See you tomorrow.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few